Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now know what you conniving money, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. You can keep your conniving money when you've been a corrupt bum. In a bill, tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a bill, tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now know what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me work for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me work for. I said money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. Now I don't want you conniving money. Oh, Joseph. morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Nation, away them, nation. Nation, away them there. Nation, come show me your motion. Nation, away them there. Congo people are the highest nation. Nation, away them there. Where are you there? Morning, neighbor, morning, morning, neighbor, morning. Share the life. We ain't 500 yet. I want one bad this morning. Because I'm in a bad mood. The ancestors here must tell you, I'll wake up. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. Good morning. Welcome to another program of Buxtonian Morning Time. It is now 7 hours 24 on the 13th day of June in the year 2022. Yes. It's 42 years since they killed Walter Rodney. But the revolution should live on, shouldn't it? The revolution should not die. Martin Carter said, I will lend my shirt as a banner to the revolution. Right? That should not find us thinking that we die. I have with me Dr. Evidence this morning. We're going to talk for a bit, 5-10 minutes or so. Because today there's that symposium at the National Library's conference room entitled Revisiting the Buxton Proposal, Tackling Poverty in the Era of Oil. Dr. David Hines, are you there? Okay, y'all share. Share. The doctor must have gotten tired of waiting on me. Good morning, Dr. Hines.
Morning.
How you doing, buddy?
All
right. Like eating some good old Guyanese pepper pot and bread.
No, that's Christmas story.
Man, every day is Christmas to me.
You're a rich man.
No. You never know. Sometimes it's fish pepper pot and egg pepper.
Anyways. I was munching on some cassava bread.
You see, that's Christmas food. Welcome home, boy. Welcome home. Welcome to the program this morning. Today, the WP has a conference, symposium that is, at the National Library to mark the 42nd death anniversary of Walter Rodney, remembering his life and works. And the conference is entitled Revisiting the Buxton Proposal. Can you help the viewers to learn more about the conference and why they should be here? Please and thanks.
Symposium.
Simple. Why did I say conference? Symposium.
A conference on your mind. As listeners and viewers know, this is 42 years today, mark 42 years since Rodney was assassinated. And every year, the WPA family and friends of Walter remember him. And this year, we do so by holding that symposium on attacking poverty. We are in the era of oil, and some people have decided that they will fight for a better contract. Some people are fighting for local content. And we in the WPA decided that we are going to fight for the working people, the citizens of Guyana, to get their share of oil, or the oil wealth. A better contract is good, and there are people who are waging that battle. Local content is also important. People are waging that battle. And we feel that there is a third battle to be waged, and that is the battle to wipe out poverty. We inherited poverty from slavery. Colonialism continued that cycle of poverty. And at independence, we tried to uproot poverty, couldn't do it because we didn't have the economic base to really root poverty out. There were attempts by the early post-independence government. And so now with oil, we feel that we have the resources to deal with poverty. And the trending in the world now, as far as poverty reduction is concerned, is to give people money directly so that they can deal with their own issues and to tie that money to outcomes in education, outcomes in health, and so forth. So what we know popularly in Guyana as cash transfers. And recently we have added the other thing, which is called the universal basic income, which is a guarantee of a basic income that is based on a living wage, so that we start as a minimum giving workers a living wage, what we call a universal basic income. Barbados has just announced that it will be implementing a universal basic income. So in 2018, the WPA launched that initiative in Buxton at the Buxton Emancipation Celebrations. Professor Clive Thomas launched it there, and that is why we're calling it the Buxton Proposal. And 4 years later, we are revisiting it because we think it's urgent. We think that the government ought to move very, very quickly towards implementing both a universal basic income and cash transfers. We know that the government is going around throwing a little money there, throwing some money there, that's not cash transfer. That's a handout you're giving to people, and it's about bribing people for votes and all those kinds of things. And we are saying, no, that is not sustainable. It is not sustainable. What is sustainable is if we tackle poverty and wipe poverty out. If you wipe poverty out, then you improve education, you improve health, you improve productivity, because more people would be participating in the workforce, and there will be a better outcome for the country. So we want to continue that discussion today using the anniversary of Walter Rodney. At 5 o'clock it starts at the National Library. Professor Clive Thomas will be the main presenter, and quite apart from it being live at the library, it will also be streamed on KAMS TV, so that persons who are overseas and Guyanese who are far away from Georgetown or who are not able to go to the library can participate in it. So it's a multi-platform event that it's both virtual and live there at the library. As I said, the intention of this discussion is to continue to raise awareness among our people about how they can directly benefit. A lot of our people are sold. They think that the only way they can benefit is if the government build roads and the government spend on education. And we are saying those things are important. Those things are important, very important. But the government can build all the roads, can build all the schools. If children are not going to school, then the schools are not beneficial to the working people, the average citizen. Government can do all the infrastructure. It has always done. But if you want to start a small business, no amount of good roads can help you start that small business. You need some infusion of capital. And a lot of poor people don't have access to banks. They don't have access to bank loans and all that kind of things. People may need, sometimes, people tell you, I need $200,000, $300,000 to start a little business. Now, if at the end of the year we take 10% of the oil income and we divide that among the households, you can get your $200,000 to start your small business. You see? And so it's a way of helping people directly. Government can spend indirectly, but government can spend directly. And now all over the world, Brazil is an example of the success of that kind of thing. So we want to have that discussion and to raise consciousness among people about the importance of a universal basic income and direct transfers to them. And we're using the anniversary of Walter Rodney, who himself believed in the empowerment of the working people, believed in the empowerment of the poor, believed that poverty could be wiped out in our country. And so we want to use the anniversary of his assassination to advance and this conversation. But I must say something. I don't want to stay long, but I want to say something about the big story. And that is the murder of the young man at Golden Grove over the weekend. And once again, we are faced with this thing of what we call extrajudicial killing. And I am saying here that there has always been extrajudicial killing. There have always been extrajudicial killing, all governments. But what is different today about the extrajudicial killing is that it's systematic. It is systematic. It is part of government policy. All right? This targeting of young black men, this criminalizing of young black men, this setting them up, this sting operation, no, this sting operation is not in Enmore, it's in Golden Grove. The sting operation is not in communities that are supportive of the government. The sting operation is in the opposition community. I am saying opposition, meaning the African Guyanese community. So here is the attempt to use the state. The state is criminalizing young men. We want gun. We want you all to come and sell me gun. But you're encouraging it. That's what you're doing. That is what that sting operation is about. You're not going to get guns off the streets through sting operations. If you're going to get guns off the street, you either use amnesty or you use other means. These sting operations are not meant to get guns off the street. They are meant to kill young black men. And that is exactly what happens. If you go on a sting operation, sting. You don't go on a sting operation and kill. And once again, we have to face this reality. And kudos to the people at Golden Grove, who without any party leader telling them that they need to protest, they came out yesterday and let their voices be heard. And I think it's a vindication of what I've been saying on this program all the time. I've been saying, do not knock people and say they're not doing anything. Human beings are not robots. Up to last week, Wednesday, when I was on, I said, all you need is a spark. Somebody got ill, something happened. That's how struggle operates. And in a sense, the fact that those people at Golden Grove came out for one day, even if it's just for one day, they are showing that they are not robots. If you kill their children, as they continue to do, they are going to take action. Bye.
Sorry. That's why I don't like muting my microphones. Thank you. I'm saying welcome back to regular programming. Hello, Clement John. Don't call me no big man, boy. Big man is pull cat. You don't know that? Big man pulls cat. Y'all tell me what I mean. Old people says a big man pull cat. And as I'm going to ask you about old people and what I say, I want to know how old you guys are. I want to know where you guys are. I want to know what you did when you were younger and what you're encouraging your children to do. Let me ask this question. Who is Betty Boop? And which cartoon character had to eat spinach in order to get strong? Y'all tell me that. That's a trivia this morning. Who is Betty Boop? And which cartoon character had to eat spinach to get strong or get strength? Good? So I'm saying Dr. Hines raised an issue this morning there, briefly, which I intended to discuss also, but in the context of Friday's discussion. Remember Friday we were talking about the implements that were found at Lodge Secondary, I think, Campbellville Secondary, wherever. And the issues, I believe, which are responsible for these continuous problems in the schools, in our communities and society at large. Right? And I want to add to the fact that, as they say, an impromptu search later this week, last week, around Thursday, Friday, at the Dolphin Secondary School turned up small Ziploc bags, several of them, with marijuana in a bigger bag or a purse in the female's washroom. Right? No, Betty Boop was not Popeye's wife. Try again. Anyhow, right? My contention is that these issues, first and foremost, they existed before. They might not have been prevalent. And secondly, there are issues which, until such time that governments address community issues, community empowerment issues, issues that affect the poor and downtrodden, these will always exist. They will always be there. An air gun or a regular 9mm pistol or whatever you call it, semi-automatic weapon, whatever you call it, is not cheap. Let's start with that. It's not cheap. And so if you find a youngster who attends a school in a depressed community with it, you must ask yourself, what's the source? What's the source? Where did it come from? Who is this youngster's godfather in crime or godmother in crime? Right? Okay, because this is becoming a distraction to me, let me just give you the answer to these two questions and nobody's to tell me anything about it anymore. Yes, Popeye is a sailor man who had to eat spinach to get strength. And Betty Boop comes out of the Archie comics. Right? Betty Boop, I won't say was Archie's girlfriend, but maybe some female that Archie always wanted to be close to and so on. Right? It's good. So please, y'all know this. I didn't expect, I didn't expect so much interest in this trivia. I will have to set a trivia time. So we deal with trivia and we deal with the real issues. Right? Thank you very much. But I thought about asking those questions because, as lighthearted as they may be, I wanted to remind you when you had time to read a comic, when you had time to read Tintin, right? When you had time to read Archie and whoever the others, right? When the girl had times to read their Mills and Booms and so on. What is Karen Black saying? Anyhow, Karen Black, you can explain yourself. Because as simple as those moments look, right? As simple as those moments look, we saw them as pastime. They contributed a whole lot to our growth and development, moral and otherwise. Right? We had an avenue to channel and deal with our stress, if I can call it that. And that very avenue provided information for us as youngsters to help our upbringing, our socialization. Right? Drew Young said she never read them, her parents would not buy them. Yes, Betty and Veronica. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Desiree. Right? So am I mixing up my characters? Betty Boop as against Betty and Veronica? Or is it a Betty and Veronica? Anyhow. Good. Favorite among boys was the Hardy Boys series. But those books, those comics, they all contributed to, in a large way, who we are. Our youngsters don't do that. They don't read anything. Well, not that they don't read anything. In most cases, they ain't got nothing to read. They're always in a machine on social media and so on. Right? Social media can be a dangerous place. It can be also good. But a lot of people use it for the negatives as against the positives. And a lot of our youngsters are actually negatively socialized by their social media presence. And so when a youngster decides I'm going to school with the nines in my waist, because it's dangerous out there, that danger might not necessarily exist in his school, but it exists in his head. The challenges of school might have been just what they were in the 80s. Right? But they're more pronounced now because you see their presence ever so often on social media. Is it TikTok? Is it WhatsApp? Is it Reels? Is it Facebook Live? They're there. Right? So those things too have their impact. I like to tell you our family secrets of mine. My teenage daughter is not on Facebook. At least the last I checked. If she's on Facebook, it means that she has to be a little dishonest to me and is on Facebook with some clandestine name. She's on WhatsApp because of virtual education, etc. But as much as we can protect our children from overexposure, if I can call it that, to violent content and so on, it would be a good thing. Good? Social media is also where our youngsters get to meet a lot of unsavory characters. They're invited to join all kinds of groups. And they network. And they get involved in all kinds of activities. So we come right back to, how does a youngster from a depressed community get financing to acquire a 9mm pistol, 9mm whatever, semi-automatic, AK-47, Glock, whatever the weapon of choice? How does one from a depressed community, a youngster who's at school, get access to such kinds of weapons? Yes, we find that youngster in the community, we find he or she strapped. We lock them away. Right? We lock them away. But we don't go looking for the godfather of crime of that individual. Because we know for a fact that the godfather of crime of that individual is one of the big boys. They say follow the money. Sometimes you have to follow the weapon. That youngster with the weapon is a bottom feeder. Where is its source? The youngster with the marijuana in school to sell, with the pop, what do they call it? Mali in school to sell, or on the street corner selling the cocaine, the sugar, the sour, whatever, these things have all kinds of names. But the youngsters who are on the street corners selling these things, or in the schools selling these things, being bad men and women, or bad boys and girls rather, are the bottom feeders, who are their godfathers and godmothers in crime. Where does a youngster, a teenager, who has never worked a day in his life, in the legal system, let's say, who did not grow up with a gold spoon in his mouth, get money to buy cocaine, equivalent to half a pound, whatever the amount, to sell on the street corner? Cocaine is big money thing, and also big connection things. It's not every Tom, Dick, and Harry you can go to and get cocaine to buy. There's always a link to a bigger wig when it comes to the cocaine and other illicit drug trade. But we don't see people tracking down or tracing or trying to establish a connection, because in most instances, many of them know the connections. And in many instances, when somebody is killed and gun is found on them, or illicit drugs is found on them, or they're killed in an exchange with the police because of an illicit gun or illicit drugs, it is because they offended one of the bigger wigs. And the coercive arm of the state is now used to exact revenge or justice, or whatever they want to call it, send a strong message to others that this is not acceptable. And so when everybody is crying out for justice from the state agency, there's no justice to be had, because the state agency is in bed with the criminal enterprise, the godfathers and godmothers of crime. David Hines has said this morning, that there has always been extrajudicial killing. But the difference now is that it is institutional. And I'm saying it is institutional for two reasons at least. One, it is institutional because the state apparatus is being used as enforcers for the criminal on the world in the first instance. That has already been established. Remember the Thomas Carroll affair, where the black clothes was being used as enforcers for Thomas Carroll, the U.S. Embassy official who was selling visas and maybe buying sex and all kinds of things. So that has been established. And what has already been known is that a coercive arm of the state, again, is being used by the state to keep the opponents of the government in line. Right? And so it is institutional for those two reasons. It is the institutions of state that are being used to perpetrate this violence. And it is not only using adults, it is now using our young men and women in the system, in the education system. And that is why they can afford to have pervasive poverties in these communities, because that is their breeding ground. That is where they're able to go and recruit criminal elements or recruit people's children for their criminal enterprise, criminalizing them in the process. Because if I'm hungry, living in a depressed community, a member of a family that can't really help itself because it is working for less than minimum wage, right? And somebody comes, because I'm already poorly socialized, and somebody comes and offers me a hustle, a way out of my poverty, a way up in the criminal enterprise, then I'm likely to take it. Why am I poorly socialized? My family is in poverty, no moral strength after generations of poverty, because poverty has this revolving cycle. Very few people are able to step out of that cycle and survive. So it's 4 or 5 generations of poverty you're talking about. Because the system, the political system, has done nothing to change, to handle, to deal with, to address the issues which are responsible for the creation of this poverty in these neighborhoods. And so from one generation to the next to the next. As a matter of fact, you will find younger and younger folks are becoming involved in criminal enterprise. So if the grandfather was involved in crime at 70, if he chose to get involved in crime at 70, you find the grandchildren might have gotten involved at 50. And the great-grandchildren now are involved in their 20s and so on. Because in most instances, they got no way of getting out. Cara Jacobs is asking, saying what she doesn't understand is why adults would even sell or introduce these illegal drugs to these children. They got nothing like poor children in this society or any society. They got the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots. And the haves will forever see the have-nots as their tool of getting more. And got nothing to do with poor children. I guarantee you that. Right? So here it is. You grow up in a family that you recognize grandfather is hustling weed for a don somewhere up the line. But weed is not a big money thing. Grandfather might be afraid to get involved in the cocaine business because he understands that it is worse and it is more dangerous. And he doesn't want to get entangled in the big league. And so you as a second or third generation, somebody comes and tell you, yeah, your grandfather been hustling for we all the time, you know, but we got a new product that the man want thing, you want to try it? Watch over the road there. You see the one? The one me working for we all the time. Where do you think you get a car from? Inducement. Because of the poor circumstances and lack of proper socialization and lack of proper support system, etc., the youth takes a bite. And he now is seen as a don, or he now becomes a don, dependent on the role they have for him. And he is used to lure others into the business. But when the hammer falls, what you see are young black men and women in the school system, out of the school system, in the communities, being found with guns and illicit drugs and illicit weapons, all kinds of things. But where is the connection? Have we searched for the connections? There are people in high offices in this society who knows where the connections are. There are people who can tell you who is the man at the office of the president that you need to go to. He's a doctor. To buy a firearm license. There are people who can tell you who is the contact at the Ministry of Home Affairs, the ministry that Brock Ben runs, who you need to go to there to buy a firearm license. I can tell you that much. People know. There are people who can tell you who is now in charge of the cocaine distribution following the demise of a certain person in this society. Who is now the don. The Mali and the pop and the sugar and the sour. And the marijuana, where you can go to get the best jammy weed. They have people who know. Are you telling me the authorities don't know? The authorities that can set up a sting operation to entrap a villager, another young black man, for having an illegal gun or whatever else they want to plant on him. You're telling me they don't know the sources of these things? My information is this. The current PPP administration has a group. Well, they have always had groups in the Guyana police force. But this one seems to be a bigger group, a more well-organized group. Not as clandestine as they would like it, because we have the information. The particular group of policemen and women that this current administration is relying on to quote-unquote control the young black men who perhaps they see as a threat to them with the excesses that they are dishing out on the people. There is this group of police men and women that this administration has in place to quote-unquote neutralize what they see as a threat from young black men. Who are the young black men? The young black men are those especially who have been exposed to military training. So if you're a former member of the Guyana Police Force, or you're a former member of the Guyana Prison Service, or you're a former member of the Guyana Defense Force and so on, you are hunted, you are endangered by the actions of this administration. They have their goon squad that is going to lure you with the aim of entrapment. They can either get a good drug deal for you, or a good gun deal for you, Somebody looking to buy a gun, they call the gun nasty gal or dirty gal. Illegal guns, that's what they call him. Dirty gal. Oh, there is past woman, right? Dirty gal. Hey, I want a dirty gal. And the thugs in the street know the slang, so they know, I could get a link. What I request usually is one to set you up. There has been an incident in Buxton here several, maybe months ago. Most of you might have read it. Of a youngster being arrested in the vicinity of the gas station. The report said that the youngster was called from wherever he was to meet somebody in the vicinity of the gas station to transact some business. Many assume that it was illegal business, it was illegitimate business. But our information says that the youngster was called, he was offered a job by this person prior to the meeting at the gas station area. A legitimate job, farmhand. The arrangement was that here, you will take care of me because I'm going to, when I leave, I have to spend so many weeks and so on this farm and thing. And my family has to survive while I'm away. So the day-to-day hustle which I am here to do, to put food on the table, I won't be here to do, so you're going to left something in advance. That was agreed to, and that youngster got the call. And when he turned up and got into the vehicle, I understand the vehicle was swarmed by plainclothes police. The next thing he knows, he is being charged, or an allegation is being put before him that he was attempting to sell an illegal firearm, despite the fact that when he entered the vehicle, he noticed a number of firearms in the vehicle. So this was no ordinary vehicle. This was a vehicle with people moving who had firearm in the car. The vehicle was swarmed and he was accused of being in possession of an illegal firearm to sell it. It's called entrapment. I understand it's a similar, perhaps a similar matter of setup in this Golden Grove issue. I don't have all the facts, but what I can sit here and say is clear murder. You can't tell me otherwise. It's clear murder. Even if you have a sting operation first and foremost will have people in strategic areas to prevent the subject of the sting escaping on any means necessary, or reducing the chances of this person getting out of this dragnet because it's a sting operation. So you're setting up a dragnet. And according to the folks on the ground, the young man was shot anywhere between 6 and 8 times. Several shots to the back, and one definitely to the head. Execution. Crime scenes investigators will tell you, if a man is shot to the back or injured in the back in any way, it will suggest that he's not being a threat to you because his back is to you. He's running away from you. And so what necessitates shooting the young man in his back, if it is that he's backing you, he's running away from you? What necessitates, even if he posed a threat, let's say he posed a threat to you, what necessitates 6 to 8 bullets? Talk to me. Anything more than 1 or 2 shots, 1 or 2 bullets, suggesting excessive use of force, even if it was justifiable force. Excessive use. And so from whichever angle you want to analyze it, as far as I'm concerned, that young man was murdered. Word on the street is, it was a setup. The police were used to exact revenge, to send a message. So here you have extrajudicial killing, as Dr. Hines explained, institutional. The institution of the state was used. To end the life of this young man for whatever, quote unquote, the crime he might have committed against whoever. Are we going to have a thorough investigation by who? To conclude what? To identify which bigwig? This is what I want you all to understand. And this is what we've been saying all the time. That this administration has in place and will continue to put in place apparatus that will allow the black youths especially to be hunted and murdered in this country. And as a people, we will have no justice whatsoever. None. The only way to protect yourself is by taking preemptive action. That's my position. The best form of defense is offense. Don't sit back and wait and say it's not going to bother me. Don't sit back and tell yourself that this is them problem, not mine. This problem is all of our problem. Golden Grove now. Buxton a few weeks ago with entrapment. Last week, you had an issue in Sapphire where a young man was shot. No, or shot at by the police. Their version of events are totally inverse to the residents' version. What the police reported, the residents have contradicted. And again, I'm saying if I were to check the credibility of anybody, I will take the credibility of the residents over the credibility of the police. Because in the Orange Boston murder, the police were quick to issue a statement that said that a now deceased, murdered Orange attempted to disarm a policeman while he was asleep. We eventually found out that Orange was killed in his sleep, murdered in his sleep. And again, that was an institutional murder, because our information suggested that the murder of Orange Boston by now should have left the shores of this country. I don't know if he is here still. He was holding out in Linden, and the price that he was paid to murder Orange Boston was $1 million or something like that. And so arrangements were being made to get him out of the jurisdiction while he stayed in Linden. And so if we were to go back then, we got the Orange Boston murder. We got the murder of the guy on East Bank Highway. I most times forget his name. Guy shot from the back of in the back seat of his car, or from the back seat of his car by police. We have this Sapphire incident which the residents are saying is nothing of the sort, as the police are saying. Come to Golden Grove. Residents are saying nothing of the sort. In fact, I saw a video last night. I think the video is on one of the popular news sites, of a young man running away from the police, being chased by the police. So if I'm running away, if I'm being chased and I'm running away, what threat do I pose to the police? What threat do I pose to the police? Yes, Peter Headley is the person I was talking about in the car. Y'all talk to me. Are you seriously thinking about sitting back and waiting for the state to protect us? It wouldn't happen. The state is not for us. The state has its own agenda of dominion, and it is using the state's apparatus to achieve that dominion, like it or not. So what do? What should you do? I said the best defense is offense. The best defense is offense. Dexter is pointing out that school children were on the road when the police were, as we say, licking shot left, right, and center. What would have been the excuse had somebody's child been hit? Huh? Y'all tell me. But that could be for another discussion. Or we could recognize from the behavior of that group of policemen that they were nothing but mercenaries. They didn't care what the outcome was so long as they got their target. And they knew that there's protection awaiting them. And so you're told that this special branch policeman is in the lockups at Vigilance Police Station, and a thorough investigation will be had. That special branch policeman is in the lockup at Vigilance, if he is, for his own protection. He's there for his own protection. Next you will hear he's on close arrest, and then he's on open arrest, and then he has disappeared from the system. Because that's how they do it. But if they say violence begets violence, if that policeman had to fear that while he is in the vigilance lockup, his family, his relatives, his family members will be exposed to serious dangers, reprisal from the young family of this young man that he murdered, he might have thought twice about doing it. How about that? I am saying violence begets violence. I am saying that the best defense is offense. And the time has been here a long time ago, and the time is still here. And until the system changes, the time will be here when citizens must make policemen and other members of the coercive arm of the state stop to think about their actions before they even do them. There was a time in this country when policemen and women feared being identified as policemen and women. They feared wearing their uniforms as policemen and women. They feared going into the very communities that they lived as policemen and women. And so they treaded a thin line. They treaded a thin line. They walked a narrow line. Citizens were endangered, but so too were policemen and women. Not so much so the members of the joint services, the army officers and so on. Not so much them. Policemen and women were just as endangered as they made citizens. It's a terrible thing when the hunter becomes the hunted. But it is also a good thing when the hunter knows that he can be hunted. Are we going to... Experience teaches wisdom. The PPP is using its experience of the past, what it had to deal with confronting young black men who were standing up, according to them, for a cause. Albeit it turned out to be a big criminal enterprise, including drug lords and political leaders and so on. But the PPP recognized that ex-military people played a meaningful role in that struggle. And now, they are prepared to eliminate that threat by entrapping them, by murdering them, using the system, using the institutions of the state. And so we have to recognize, experience has to teach us that if we sit back and allow this to continue to happen, at the end of the day, we will be the biggest losers. We will be the biggest losers. Our communities will be the biggest losers. Our families will be the biggest losers. And so the good book says, if your right hand going to offend you, cut it off. They might look like you, but they necessarily are of you. Run them out of your communities. Many of you like to watch African movies. When people misbehave, they get banished to the wilderness. Banish them to the wilderness. Oh, you want to bring destruction among us and you live among us? Get out. Go and live among those who are sending you to cause destruction. So when we see your pair, we know that you were sent and we will know how to deal with you. Separate yourselves from them. So when you see them, you know this is the enemy. Looks like us, but is not necessarily of us. So while this young man is in vigilance lockup, or wherever they have him, for safekeeping, he should have been wondering, is my family as safe as I am in here? Other families should be looking on and say, my son, do not expose me to the danger that that policeman exposed his family to. Do you all remember what happened to that family? Or that policeman that did that to that young man? Please, I'm begging you, my son, I know you're in the police force, please walk this straight and narrow way. Don't allow this to happen to our family. Y'all know what I'm saying? One of my favorite actors is Samuel Jackson. Was he the man who acted A Time to Kill? The lines are open. 6225933 is the number to call. 6225933 is the number to call. There's a time for everything. The good book tells you there's a time for planting and there's a time for plucking out. There's a time to be born and there's a time to die. There's a time to sit idly by and there's a time to rise up and defend your damn selves. Morning, neighbor. Morning. Hey, welcome to the show. It is now, wow, 7 hours 21, but you know what? Oi. That's a moral victory I have there. Just the face of this black Buxtonian man. Goddamn. You know they start tampering with the program. Power to the people. A Luther continua. Power to the people. You could try, but you can't win. You could try, but you can't win. How many of you remember this song? And you know, sometimes when they tickle me and I want wine and I just remember some things, these things just come to my mind. Some will call it divine inspiration. Them a call us pirates. Them a call us illegal broadcasters. Just because we play what the people want. Y'all know that song? Mm-hmm. They broke down one, we go build 10 strong. Whoa! Fire in the house! Y'all go try what y'all like. Every time you knock me off, I'm coming on. At least today. I guarantee you the one. Every time you knock me off, I will come back on. Yeah, you got the state's apparatus, the state's resources to do as you like. But you know what I got? Self-confidence and determination. And so, who vex lose? Yes, let's talk. Let's talk. I got time with them, man. They're gonna try again. Share the life, share the life. Share. What is this? Share the life, folks. Share. Let's get to 500 and then we're gonna start talking stinking dirty business. Well, now that I will wait anyhow, because time is of the essence. We are going to have Winston Jordan on this morning. Mr. Winston Jordan is going to be with us this morning. And so we have things to talk about the economy, right? Whether it is tanking or not. Before I forget, let me advise you. I know a lot of people like to hold on to the dear old US currency and Canadian currency and British pounds and so on. And say, you know, we're keeping it for hard times, for rainy days, right? One of the things you're trading in stock, because actually you can consider money stock, you know. One of the things you're trading in stock is that you have to know when to buy and when to sell. And right now, if anybody's going to contradict me, it has to be Mr. Jordan when he comes on late in the morning. Now is the time to sell. The Guyana dollar is becoming strong against the US. And so if you had bought US dollars, let's say for $207 for one, if you attempt to resell that money right now, you are going to get $195, $198. You're not going to get $200. And so you'll be selling at a loss. But I rather suspect if you hold on and hope for the US currency to rebound, you're going to suffer greater losses. I guess with the Ukrainian war and the crisis in oil, if there is any, and the fact that Guyana is producing millions of barrels of oil per day and so on and so forth, the Guyana dollar is going to remain strong against the US it may get stronger. And so the longer you keep it, I think the greater loss you will suffer. So sell. Sell. Right? I will tell you that there's speculators who will buy. Right? With anticipation that the US dollar is going to rebound. But I put it out there. I hope Mr. Jordan is listening, and so you will grant us advice early up in the program as to whether or not I'm right, or whether my head is in the right place. Right? Good morning, Golden Grove, Victoria, Haslington, Nabaklis, that entire East Coast area there. Good morning, y'all. Hope y'all on the road already. I hope y'all didn't even come off the road last night. You know what I'm saying? I hope y'all didn't even come off the road last night. This must be a 24/7 protest. And protest is meant to disrupt the order of things. And so if you're disrupting the order of things, then you're protesting. Well, you're protesting if you don't disrupt the order of things. One thing is certain, is that we're living in an autocracy, we're living in a dictatorship, we're living in a country where the powers that be, and when I say the powers that be, one has to assess whether or not it is the political powers or the foot soldiers of the politicians, can be emboldened, feel good enough to instruct policemen to trail, as we like to say, and to trail the leader of the opposition, to monitor his movements, to infringe his human rights with no fear of consequence. That has left me with a lot of questions in mind. I saw Aubrey Norton yesterday confronting the policeman. Why Aubrey? Why Aubrey? Where is the security detail for the leader of the opposition? Is he entitled to one from the state? Let's start there. Is he entitled to security detail from the state? Number one. Number two, is the political party which he leads not responsible for protecting him? Where is the security apparatus of the PNC? Where is the security apparatus of the APNU? Now let me get ranted, as we like to say. If the leader of the opposition can be protected by the political party or parties which he serves, then he can't protect nobody. And the party or parties which he represents can't protect nobody. We have to stop looking at things at face value. There's no reason whatsoever why Aubrey Norton should be on the road without an entourage. Heavily armed, armed to the teeth, prepared to confront anything that may occur. I say that. And so no police should have been allowed anywhere near the vehicle of the leader of the opposition. All manner of things could have happened yesterday. I tell you all, reading is my thing. I used to like to read. I don't find much time to read now, but reading has always been my thing. And I will always refer to kings of cocaine, because Pablo Escobar had established a motorcycle gang. And in ordinary circumstances, those who addressed this policemen yesterday, you notice they were all masked up? Can you identify any of them? In Pablo Escobar's world, all they had to do is ride up as close as they were to Aubrey Norton's vehicle and attach an explosive device. Right away and activate it, and you would have had a dead opposition leader. I know many in the PNC would have been celebrating. Hey, we get rid of you. We never like you. Others would have been wringing their fingers. I rest my case. Welcome to the program. Welcome to the program. Mr. Winston Jordan is the guest this morning. I need to get the phone to call him. Y'all bear with me. 1 minute, I should be back. I don't know what I did with the phone, but I have a fair idea where it would be. I'm back. They don't like when I talk. But sometimes when you look at the PNC and politics, you want to know if it's a set of little boys and girls playing politics in this country. Right? While they're in there fighting each other. Not doing what is right for themselves. They're leaving their people exposed. Who vex lose? They don't like when I talk, but who vex lose? Because them say what hot eye make nose run water. And as it is right now, I learn nonsense. Nonsense. You are leaving the leader of the opposition exposed, even if he is as stubborn as Granger. Even if he is as stubborn as Granger, tell you don't want no security detail, etc., etc. You gotta overrule the man. I say that. I'm saying it not out of hatred, but out of love. Right? Again, I'm saying, who vex, lose. Come on, man, y'all think, don't aggravate me. Alright, I guess I gotta use the old way. Old time religion is always the best. Don't worry yourself. I'm going back to my old time religion. Don't want to behave like Jack Dio. Wicked and spiteful, dirty, and bad mind. Mr. Jordan, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Kadaki. How you doing?
Hi, good man. I hope you're feeling like at last this morning, like you can hold up the world.
I like the weather, you know. Some days you rain, some days and some days in between. But like the weather, you gotta keep.
You gotta keep weathering the storm, man.
Yes, exactly, and that is the reason why I am on today. Because if you adversities continue to overtake you, then you have lost the reason for living.
Very well. I always say, if you want to die quick, give up. So giving up is never an option.
Well, giving up is not an option. Giving up is not an option, really, you know. But you have to admit to what are your limitations.
Very well.
And seek to work within those.
Very well.
You know, the last time I on was I think May 31st, and I finished the program. Didn't feel too well, so I had to run to my doctor, and he prescribed a certain regimen that had me close to the bed again. You know, so but then I had to interrupt that regimen and go to court on June the 2nd, I think it was, because I had to go back to the chief magistrate for her to assign another magistrate to the matter. And so after that I came back, I hit the sack, as they say. Been convalescent a little bit, feel slightly better at times, but can't push myself. But I have to do this program because I have been saying publicly, if we don't challenge the government, then the government will occasionally just ram through whatever it is doing. I think challenges are the dictionary and life to set up you another view, and to have those views merge ultimately as close as possible to what can be viewed to be a consensus. But to shut out alternative views or different views and so on, and to continuously do so while that you elected on a manifesto, is to make a mockery of what they call democracy, quite honestly. Well, democracy might be the rule of the majority. It didn't say you didn't have to consider also what you call a minority. And as you well know during the discussion on the no confidence, there are different kinds of minority, and right now a minority that can be considered a majority, because in the parliament the seating is 60 of 65 is 32. So you don't have a minority in the sense of 45, 20, or 50, 15 or so on. You have a minority of one, and therefore that will indicate to you that is as close as you can get to the perfect alignment of government position, and so I find it hard to believe that we're in a construct where you confidently hear about manifesto, and you do things to keep the other side out. I may not be in active politics anymore, but I maintain I have a view, and I will put it out there. And to some extent, who knows, maybe they will take that view, mine, others, and so forth, in crafting future policy. But we got to keep at it rather than giving up.
Indeed, you're entitled to that view, and nobody must suppress it. I was saying earlier this morning, I assume you were hearing me, when I was attempting to be an economist and giving people business advice and all kind of thing. I see the US dollar is slipping against the Ghana dollar.
You mean in economic terms it's not slipping, it's rising.
Okay.
We do the opposite way, in other words, then it's strengthening. Slipping would suggest that it's deteriorating, but actually it's appreciating at the moment.
Let me get this concept right. What is appreciating?
Okay, right. So I tend to give it a simple example. As you rightly said, if you bought at if you paid $200 to get one US 2 months ago, and now you can pay $200 Ghana dollars to get one US, it means the Ghana currency is appreciating against the United States dollar.
Right, that's what I understand.
Right.
But I think just now what you said had me confused. I thought you were saying that the US dollars is appreciating.
No.
Oh,
the Ghana dollar is appreciating against US dollar.
So can I rightly say that the US dollar is slipping against the Ghana dollar?
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, that is what I said.
Yeah. Okay, right.
Communication doesn't take place if the other side didn't get you clearly.
Right, absolutely.
Good.
Yes.
Right, so go ahead.
No, but you were going to ask me a question.
Well, basically I was asking if it is, from your point of view, going to be sustained. This strengthening of the Ghana dollar, is it going to be there all the time? Should people start selling the acquired US, or they should hold on?
Well, put it this way. The Bank of Guyana, I think a month or two ago, when this conference was taking place, had suggested that it wasn't an appreciation. As you remember, I came on your show and indicated that a rose by another name is a rose, and it was by definition an appreciation. And an appreciation doesn't have to be a sustained situation, especially the kind of currency regime that we maintain, which is some kind of like a managed float. We like to think that floating, but it's a kind of managed float because the central bank intervenes from time to time whenever there is no foreign currency, to help stabilize the rate at a certain US Ghana dollar rate. And when there's excess currency, the central will enter the market and buy up some of that currency. So the currency is appreciated. As to whether it's long term, well, put it this way: with the outlook for foreign currency in the natural resource fund being billions of dollars. In fact, if I could quickly, let me see if I have it any bit close by. Okay, so according to the budget estimates that were presented earlier this year, Guyana is projected to receive 5.85 billion 846 million United States dollars into the natural resource fund between 2020 and 2025. 2020 and 2025. And we're expected to withdraw based on the formula in the law over the period 2022 to 2025 roughly 3 billion 451 million United States dollars. So we're obviously going to be withdrawing that and putting it into the consult fund, which means that it's going to come into the system of Guyana. We're not accustomed to that kind of money. And I'm not even speaking here about export receipts, because we will need to add export receipts and any other inflows, including foreign direct investment, flows from multilateral institutions, flows from bilateral institutions like China and India for projects that are being done in Guyana, private flows, remittances, and so on. When you add all of that, Guyana can potentially be awash with foreign currency that can cause the rate to continue to appreciate. Now, people may say, well, let it appreciate because that's a good thing. But, in countries like Guyana, where we are deemed to be open, which means that we sell almost all of our exports to the world, and we import everything that we use from the world. So we're deemed to be an open economy. And what we sell to the world are basically what we call primary goods. Goods that are more or less at the stage of production, right? There are no value chain. Right?
Raw products.
So we dig out bauxite from the ground and we put it into ships and ship it out to some place that is going to use that, add value to that bauxite, and send it back to Guyana, whether it's aluminium, whether it's pots, pans, spoons, the aircraft industry, whatever. Okay? So we don't do that. So we send out things in a primary stage. Okay? And we have to be competitive with the rest of the world, because there is nothing I know of where we can compete at world market levels without getting what you call a protectionist price, or a favored price. So we have to make certain that we are cost competitive to sell our stuff in the open market. And a strong currency will not allow us to do that. Okay? A strong currency will turn the terms of trade against us. All right? So what that means is that people from abroad will be able to sell more or less the same thing to us cheaper than we were able to export them and get earnings. So that can destroy our terms of trade and destroy our foreign currency earnings, because the more our currency appreciate, is the less foreigners are willing to buy our goods. They can get it cheaper at some other place or from some other source, so to speak. So the exchange rate, we have to have an exchange rate policy, okay, that stabilizes the rate at a certain level and doesn't allow that rate to move outside of that band that you feel is the most competitive rate for us to maintain.
So,
Yeah.
so am I hearing you say that Guyanese should not be looking forward to the day when the Guyana dollar would be traded 1-for-1 with the US?
No, I don't think we should. And as I said again, I don't think we should be too caught up as to whether we want the rate to go back to 50 or 2 or so on. I keep saying, look, the Japanese yen is how much, 100 and something to $1 US, but they're one of the strongest economies in the world. It's how you manage your exchange rate system and how you allow it to do good for your economy, for your exports, for your trade, and for your local productive sector and so on. Sometimes we get caught up, with these okay, we want the rate back to 2-to-1. If a rate artificially goes to 2-to-1, you have to have the implications of what happened to assets. What happened to your assets in the economy? I'll give you a simple example. If you have $100 in the bank right now, say $200 in the bank right now, and it's probably worth only $1 US if you were to exchange it.
Very well.
Overnight, if the rate went to 50 to 51, you suddenly have 4 US. Right? And if it went to 10-to-1, you now got 20 US potentially in the bank. Okay, and so on. Now that will put pressure immediately on the reserves and the whole foreign exchange. All right. So I go back to the thing which said it is for the policymakers to sit down and understand where this rate is likely to go. And get help from the International Monetary Fund if we have time. And we're going to take a look at. They can get help from the Monetary Fund, get it from a branch of the International Monetary Fund, Arabian, to determine the approach to the management of the exchange rate. In fact, if we have time to go to the part of it, you will see that in the piece that the IMF made at the conclusion of the last before mission, they speak about better management in terms of allowing the break take the, which is a different story altogether. So we go down the road, but they did the fact that we will need heightened exchange rate management in the context of the emerging and the sector. So in terms of your advice to your viewers, I would say if you are strictly a trading person, a person who understands asset values and so on, that it may pay you to sell your all United States and cut your losses, because the outlook for Ghana doesn't show that the US rate at all, given the massive inflows of foreign currency that are expected over the next years. So in that scenario, then people are going to become more and more confident that they do not need to store United States dollars as an asset because of fear of shortages and exchange rate decline. And once that confidence comes into the system, then they can be used as this value. Because I mean, if you want to send $100 to your nephew abroad or a child who's doing, you know that you can, and without any hassle, get that foreign currency. Right now, it's because you know that you don't have that confidence. You tend to store every $1 from New York or get to your birthday or something. But once with the outlook, it shows that confidence is restored to you, and it's going to be United States dollars as we pump so much into the system. Then it will be best at this stage cut losses and hold the Ghana down. On the other hand, the caution would be that we have not had a long enough period to absorb the confidence that we will need to continue holding Ghana down instead of the United States businesses that we hold right now. And of course, given the intrinsic value of United States dollar, I remember growing up, my grandmother used to monies for her burial at society, and they would accompany her prayers, and they put the money down in the book. She'll be forever looking at the book. I asked her why, and just smiling. Maybe it's the money is the book. So similarly with the United States dollar, there's a kind of magnetism to it. Okay, so notwithstanding the advice that we give, it's better to hold dollar balances so that you will cut to that, give them the appreciation rate. I don't think many people will listen to you and go madly selling the US dollar might be keeping, right? Because the magnetism about the United dollar that will still hold. And of course, notwithstanding the appreciation, people may not want the hustle, because a lot of them sit going to the banks and trying to get foreign currency with ease. Even though they can be with some time. Okay? And of course, we also have where we are close to neighbors, particularly Venezuela, that has an issue with foreign currency. And so, that currency may because of the process may be shipped out. So sometimes you may have a stop, it appears. Yeah. So it is not, while the advice is correct in economic terms and so on, I don't think too many people are going to heed the advice of converting your US dollar to Ghana dollar. I don't think.
The other thing to watch there too is I reflected on your terminology. I'm paraphrasing here. People would make a mad rush to start selling, because if you make that mad rush to start selling, it means that supply will outstrip demand, and so the price will go lower. So you have to be strategic in selling, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Currency is traded just like any other commodity. If demand
currency is a commodity.
Right. Far exceeds supply, then the prices will be high. But if supply far exceeds demand, then
that's right.
You're gonna get peanuts, say thing. So you gotta be careful. You gotta know. You gotta manage this thing. You gotta look at it from both sides, like Mr. Jordan is recommending.
I think if you are in manufacturing and so on, you will hasten to get the US simply because you pay the same wage. You have to pay the same, let's say, the $70,000. And if you were taking, let us say, if 70,000 one roughly
350 US.
Around 50 US, okay? Good. So you would have exchanged 350 US to pay the wage. Now if the currency is appreciating and it's now 190, it means you have to exchange more than 350 US. Right? You will have to exchange more than 350 US to pay the same $70,000 wage. And if the currency continues to appreciate, you will have to exchange even more US to pay the same $70,000. So those who are in manufacturing and production and all these they are the ones who will most likely take heed of your advice, because they will start feeling the squeeze. The other thing, of course, the other downside of this, of course, is that the producer will not continually exchange more and more to it, because there's an argument here that he can find more and more US, but he will not continue to exchange more and more US to pay the $70,000 wage. In fact, a rational producer will start cutting costs, and one of the costs he cuts very early is labor costs.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So you may very well see higher unemployment with an appreciating rate. Okay, higher unemployment, lower receipts. So an appreciation rate can be very damaging to the economy. And that is why everybody, including the last Article 4 mission, warned the government of exchange rate management and its impact on the economy. And I think you made a segue into your program this morning, but a particular aspect of the appreciating rate. You know, you can having an appreciating rate while you have prices is literally, but that's what you have in here, a rate that is appreciated while prices are, all right, which means that we really flooding economy with United States that are absorbing less in terms of the galloping price. Because once prices are galloping, it means that people are paying, and we important to the I noticed in today's paper that gasoline has moved from, I think, $2.29, I think it was in March, to now $2.65. Okay, if that local price has moved while the rate was it means that the importers will be paying more and more United States to import the same gasoline if in the same overseas. But with prices not remaining overseas, it means the local Shell or Guyana or whoever would have had to get more and more Guyana dollars to get more and more dollars to import the same level of gasoline. And that's a worrying thing because that could bankrupt businesses. So this thing, in a small nutshell, has to be looked at immediately, and a way is to understand how the exchange rate and our exchange rate will ensure stability in the economy and ensure that the economy does not lose competitiveness, does not lose on the employment side, does not result in more poverty and so forth. So those are domestic factors which the government will have to engage like yesterday, so to speak.
Good. And I'm happy that we actually touched on this topic and basically opened the program, because all of these things which we're talking about, the appreciating currency and so on, import costs versus export costs, contribute to the rising cost of living. And we're hearing that with the rising cost of living, well, not only hearing, we're recognizing that despite Guyana might be earning more from oil, cost of living continues to rise. We don't necessarily see the, policies being put in place to cushion that effect. And how does that impact the food and other situation for Guyana, Guyanese, perhaps the entire region when you talk about food security?
All right. So before I go into that, I just want to get this other point out because it's a bit point, and it has to do with the whole that point. I am going to get to it as soon as I finish this other point because it worries me, and I'm worried that it is like sleepwalking where this matter is going on. And it has to do with I saw in Starbuck News June, they reported that Venezuela lodged a preliminary objection to admissibility of board case before the ICJ, right? And of course, this came after Venezuela had declared that they had no jurisdiction to adjudicate the border controversy between Guyana and Venezuela. All right. So that was made by Stop News. And then the Ministry of Foreign Affairs put out a press release days afterwards that virtually accused Caracas of attempting to delay the conclusion of the case, but that they welcome Caracas's belated acceptance of the ICJ jurisdiction. And that appeared to have been the end of this matter, because you have not heard anything subsequent to that. And the reason why it bothers me is because we seem to have no strategists, whether at the level of the government, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I don't know if the Foreign Institute is still working, and worst of all for me is the University of Guyana, where that body of knowledge is supposed to reside, that engages this matter, frontally and continuously. We seem to believe that because we think America is in our corner, something to the effect that America might be in our corner, that we don't have to be bothered. But we have to immediately, as a people, ask, why did Venezuela, what is the motive of Venezuela behind this sudden change in the stance? Because for all the time, they have been saying ICJ had no jurisdiction, they're not going to recognize anything, and so on. So what it is that has allowed Venezuela to come up suddenly with this new position, right? And so we have no more debates. You don't hear anything on the thing, and I hope Dr. Hines is listening, and perhaps he will take up this more than me, because I know it's within his bailiwick. But I have done a little bit of run around and a little research on it, and I want to give your our readers, because part of what we do is educate. And I saw that on June the 6th, Reuters had reported that the U.S. is to let Eni is an Italian, Eni is a party, an Italian company in the oil business, and Repsol. So the Reuters, June the 6th, had reported that U.S. is to let Eni and Repsol to ship Venezuela oil to Europe next month to make up for Russian crude. And then resuming the order for debt swaps halted 2 years ago when Washington stepped up sanctions on Venezuela. Now, this clearly shows a new rapprochement between United States and Venezuela. It has been seen already, anyhow, from the time the Biden administration came in, that they would not take the hard stance that the Trump administration had taken with Venezuela. I mean, they're not going to go overboard or any such thing. But these small snippets could tell a story. And in any case, this will then represent a symbolic boost for the administration. Then you also read in March, I believe, of this year, that the Biden administration had held its high-level talks with Caracas. Now, why is all of this taking place? Why is all this taking place? Well, let's see if we know. Well, for one, we know that Venezuela has the highest reserves of crude in the entire world. I mean, think about it. Venezuela has, Venezuela has 303.8 billion barrels of reserves, of known reserves, compared to our 11 billion barrels. That's one. Two, before the U.S. suspended diplomatic operations in Venezuela, the United States was Venezuela's largest trading partner. They did US $3.2 billion in 2019, but this went down to US $1.2 1.13 billion in 2020. And then since the addition of sanctions in 2019, the US has not imported crude oil from Venezuela. In addition, foreign direct investment from the US to Venezuela has almost dried up. Okay? So you could see what is in there. Thirdly, to fill that gap, China is now Venezuela's largest customer. As much as 70% of the monthly shipment of oil from Venezuela go to Chinese refineries. So the Venezuela's new trade partners, guess what, are China, Russia, and Iran. So while United States had exited more or less from Venezuela or kept a low trading profile in Venezuela, China, Russia, Iran stepped in. I wouldn't call them United States, but certainly they aren't still the greatest. China, Russia, and Iran stepped in. Now, the United States is not it back and allow these countries to get prominent foothold in their backyard, right? We ought to know this. So when we jump in and think that the step that was made by the United States Ambassador Lynch in June of 2021, quote, the U.S. has called for a legal peace resolution to Guyana's border controversy with Venezuela, and we reiterate that call fully. That call today, end of quote. While it gives us some comfort, we ought not to become comfortable. We ought not to become comfortable. Because it was American Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, I believe, who had said permanent interest, not permanent friends. And it was William Clay also who had said, America has no permanent or enemies, only interest. That is what we have to keep in mind. That is what we keep in mind. Because America didn't say that she backed Guyana or Venezuela in the border country. She said, in the words of the Ambassador Lynch, that they're calling for a legal, peaceful resolution. They didn't say that they backed Guyana. The wording was very, very, very careful. Very, very, very careful. Those who know the history of the Guyana-Venezuela controversy will know that the border was settled since 1899. It was settled, and that Great Britain, who was our colonial power, was bullied into going to arbitration. They were bullied by the very into going to arbitration. And in that arbitration panel, they had two former American presidents who played a role. So Americans are deep, deep, deep into this. So I think we are sleepwalking into thinking that because of that statement that we have America. All we have is America backing a legal, peaceful resolution, which should not have reached this stage, because America had their footprint in the earlier arbitration, and this matter was settled for. That it could be today, reached today's stage again, due to the machination of the 60s of America not wanting another communist in the backyard, and therefore we reaping the whirlwind. But it is what it is. But we ourselves, guys, have not, beyond what was done in the 80s due to the era of in awareness of this matter, we have done very little. We have done very little since then to keep our awareness at the highest level, on this matter. You go to Venezuela, and every little child will talk about extracurricular being theirs. They learn it from kindergarten right through. And notwithstanding, many of Venezuelans, they're not like Europe or whatnot, they know one thing. They say that it was theirs. But when you come to Guyana, hear how we are undermining our own totally. We have over 40,000 Venezuelans in Guyana. 40,000, over 40,000 plus Venezuelans in Guyana. And many of them are settled in the very area being claimed by Venezuela. Can you believe that? Many of them, or most of them, are settled in areas that are claimed by the very Venezuela. The question is, okay, do we have a plan B? Yes, we have rightly gone to the ICJ. Yes, we have an extremely strong case, and so forth. But we have seen in too many times where strong case don't mean you win case, because they got all kinds of factors and machinations that play at the international level. All kinds of factors that play. So yes, we do have a strong case. We have made, and we have been making strong cases and so on, and so forth. But do we have a plan B? And are we doing things to make certain that our population remains permanently engaged? Not these little, sporadic things here, sporadic things there, and so on. Permanently engaged. We have no more teaching of this controversy. It forms no part of the curricula of the school system or the university system or any post-secondary school system in Guyana or anything. You cannot ask anybody on average whether they know anything about the Guyana-Venezuela border controversy. You cannot. So I don't know. Every time it flares up, we run and we put a couple of things, adverts in the papers and adverts on the air and so on. But we do nothing to permanently. And we have two neighbors, Venezuela and Suriname, who are claiming our territory.
And we wrap up. We are well wrapped up with Suriname.
And we are well wrapped up with Suriname. I mean, Suriname, as you know, in recent past, were actually coming to Guyana, holding meetings where they were exhibiting a map that had our territory. And they were holding meeting with Guyanese. They were holding meeting with Guyanese businessmen and so forth. And they were exhibiting a map that had our territory in it. And we sat there. So that is what I'm saying. You cannot expect to imbue pride and patriotism and all this kind of thing at the spur of the moment when these matters come up. We have to teach people from day one. And look how bad we have gone to that. That's why I thought this matter was more important. We had to get it up. Mr. Conway, I believe in yesterday's Stabrook News, Clinton Conway, who former assistant commissioner, lamented the fact that he went to the National Sports Hall and saw the Guyana flag flown, I believe, or painted or something.
Painted upside down.
Upside down. He said he then went to Ministry of Housing and Brickdam and had the same experience. That is not the fourth time that is happening.
And the incorrect usage of the word annex.
And then, well, of course, I didn't even go down the English part because, they might have sidetracked the whole story. But this is the point we're making, Kodak. This is the point we're making. I heard so many and so on in this true protocol, which apparently quite popular after play Megan Band, King of Bang or game, get banned from Guyana and so on. So, these school children, do you know that these school children, many of them cannot sing the fourth national anthem, most of the fourth line. Many of them don't know to recite the pledge. So the patriotism that you need, first and foremost, in scenarios where you have border issues, you have that problem in Guyana. And it doesn't get revived when the matter flares up and you play Not a Blade of Grass. It doesn't get revived. And people don't seem to understand. People don't seem to understand that this is a sustained, long-term position that we are in. That we have to always have our people alerted and with us. But we continue to do, things that to me that are going the opposite side. For example, you have confusing people between one Guyana and one people, one nation, one destiny. And you seem now to relegate our one people, one nation destiny and now upstaging it with one Guyana. You're confusing people, right? You're confusing people. So we send all these conflicting messages. You also have this fuel disunity within the population. As I indicated, almost 50% of the population voted at the last time for the opposition. And yet that almost 50% feel excluded from the mainstream of development. And they point to the largest of the society, whether they're cash grants, cash transfers, public investment in their community, who get in contracts, who are with the oil sector, who are own sector, and so forth. They point to these instances where they feel that they are being neglected, where they don't feel part of the development. And it don't take a genius to say that where race relations are worsening and where disunity is rising to the fore, that your enemies will take advantage. They will take advantage of that. Venezuela is no poke, and they're looking and observing the situation in Guyana. They're no poke. Maybe they're looking and observing, and together with the rapprochement of United States, that they felt the time is opportune to enter the process at a tangential level. I don't know. We haven't done our homework on these matters. And they also continue to flood Guyana with more and more Venezuelans coming over the border.
One of the things I always muse on is that while we see Venezuelans coming over the border, the powers that we see Venezuelans coming over the border as a matter of perhaps just people looking for a better living situation, a lot of military folks might be coming over that very border as quote-unquote refugees to gather intelligence. So you might be having a real situation of the Horse of Troy.
That is absolutely correct, Kidaki. I mean, nobody in their right mind will perceive that this uncontrolled uncontrolled cross-border traffic. It's uncontrolled because we seem to have abandoned our borders in the sense that we just allow these people to cross, under the guise of humanitarian. When the last people, as I remember, did that, Cuba emptied all the jails and so on and sent them to Miami. You remember the Mariel boat? I think it was the Mariel boat crisis or something like that. Cuba said, "All you go." Only when they arrived at the shores, America realized what Cuba had done. You understand? That among the good were the bad and the indifferent and so on. And they had hell to play to find those people and send them back. For hell to play. And I don't even know if they could have gone back because I don't know if Cuba would have taken them back or not. But we know the syndicators or whoever they are already creating havoc in our country. We know that they are already destabilizing our country. And we don't know who else is here. So I don't know when we're going to put a stop to all these Venezuelans coming to Guyana. There's a limit to how much humanitarian assistance we can get, and there must be some program of reintegration with Venezuela. But it's I don't know. I believe Venezuelans now might be more than Chinese population in Guyana. They may very well be more than the Chinese population in Guyana. And so of course also there are other issues that really send mixed messages, to this whole story, this whole business about some new border patrol being established in Guyana, and the army itself, the GDF, may very well ask, what is their role versus the border patrol. I thought we all know that the GDF was responsible for border patrol, but now you're hearing about some border patrol new entity to establish. And then, of course, I think last year, the ease with which people can now register a Guyanese to enable them to get a birth certificate and ultimately a passport. Of course, that has been in the news for a while, and everybody's made their positions clear where that's concerned. But in the last claims and objections, I heard the opposition objecting violently that non-Guyanese were being registered, especially in those areas being claimed by Venezuela. So whether true or false or so on, that's a serious allegation. And it can't be whisked away by saying that is not true. It cannot be whisked away by saying that is not true. Because it ultimately affects the internal security of Guyana and the external security. Because if nations believe that your passport is not properly protected with the highest security, then they are going to begin, Guyanese travelers are going to begin to get problems when they travel on a Guyana passport. They are going to begin to get problems when they travel on a Guyana passport. We have to maintain the highest level of security and integrity of our travel documents and of our registration documents. And so the ease with which people can now go to some JP and so on in some place and say, yes, I was born in Guyana, but I didn't register for birth and so on. That is real common. And sometimes we do not see. Sometimes we do not. The problem that we are caught in the broader sense. So my thing is that I had to put that out there in the hope that whoever listens to the program will either contradict what I'm saying, but I am pleading for the Guyana-Venezuela controversy to be made a part of the curriculum of all educational institutions in Guyana. And that in some respects, it should be compulsory that you pass that as a subject. Otherwise, you know, I don't know. And then, of course, I don't know if we have a separate policy. Years ago, we had a national service established in the far-flung areas, and it acted as our first eyes, our second eyes and ears, where the army was not part. And at the same time, it allowed our people to be trained in discipline, in skills, and so forth. And it allowed a number of unemployed people to be put in a setting, a disciplined setting, learn a trade, be fed 3 meals a day, and not have to worry about crime and so forth. Now, national service was given a bad name by some people for political reasons. But there are a number of countries that have national service or something looking like national service. Israel, for example, is compulsory. I believe in Switzerland, it's also compulsory that you do national service. And there are second and third line of defense and so forth. Of course, Tanzania and so on, they all have their own form of national service and so forth. If you don't want to call it national service, we have to find something that is similar, youth service or something that will allow some level of discipline to be brought together with the instilling of a skill, especially since we have the art industry and it requires all kinds of secondary skills in the oil industry and those industries that are tangential to the oil sector. And the way we can do that is to harness the energies, particularly our youth, into productive channels. And it's unfortunate what is happening, especially now in the schools, the large school and Campbell government school being two of the recent examples. What is happening in our schools, where now it appears that you're going to have metal detectors, high barbed wire fences, and whatnot. Who knows? Maybe teachers being armed in defense, in their own defense, or against attackers within the school and without the school. We can't afford a quiet, peaceful country like Ghana. Cannot afford to be going down that road. We already see our big brother United States, what that has done and what that is doing to them. And we can't allow that here. We can't allow it here. The school system in many respects is failing these people. We continue with the same one-track kind of system. We go at taking more and more loans, like a new loan for $4 million US being taken from the World Bank to say to improve education. We're good at taking these loans. We've taken a lot of them over the last 10, 15 years. And I don't know how much the education system has improved or how the forgotten lot, not the ones who are bright and so forth, they will make it. But the large numbers of the forgotten lot, how they have been helped by these loans that we continue to take. You know, we are failing our young people. They are bright. Many of them are bright. We need a different education system to let them see themselves as human beings, first and foremost, that they have worth in the society, that they are citizens of this country who can be productive. And then we can work there, rather than having them doing a left, right, maths, English, whatever. Not everybody is going to do that. You know, not everybody is going to do that. You know, not everybody is going to go after Harvard and UG and so forth. But it doesn't mean because they don't go there, they are failures. And we have to stop glorifying, or even as we glorify the top 2% or whoever, we have to make the other 98 or whatever % feel that this wasn't a pass or fail issue, but it was a structuring issue, and therefore now we can deal with you in some way that will ultimately make a productive citizen in the society. So that is what I wanted to on that front. So now we could come back to your, unless you wanted to add any question on that.
Well, I think a whole lot. I think more than enough has been said on this issue. One of the viewers said, or several viewers are of the opinion that, and I'm sitting here. I've been thinking it a while, and having seen it said, I'm thinking, you know, war and taking over and so on doesn't have to necessarily be with guns, you know. It could be with brains only. And so it is anticipated that the rate at which this administration is allowing Venezuelans to come over here and grant them citizenship and so on, birth certificate and so on, Venezuela might soon be governed by a Guyanese, but Guyana might soon be governed by a Guyanese, by a Venezuelan who will just annex it to Venezuela.
Well, the impossibility is not. The impossibility is not there. I think we need to get very, very serious and stop thinking that because our case is before the ICJ, you know, we don't win, or because the Americans said exactly what I quoted, we got America on our side. This is what that it must be a concern. It must be a concern. Okay, we seem to put all our egg in the ICJ bag. Now we have to leave an egg or two out there, which says yes, our case is right, our case is just, and we have all our ducks lined up that we should win this case. Agreed. But Venezuela already said they're not going to recognize the result anyhow. And their participation now don't mean that they're going to recognize the result if it goes against them. So we can't not have plan B, plan C, plan D, and plan. In other words, we have to have a total strategy. What we have right now is a partial strategy. And that partial strategy has heavy emphasis on the ICJ. Now, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has already indicated that our case will be delayed. None of us knows for how long our case will be delayed. None of us knows how long our case will be delayed. Okay? So we don't know whether Venezuela has now come to interrupt our case, to disrupt the smooth rhythm, or because they feel if they can hold out long enough, those judges rotate. Those judges rotate, rotate out and so on, that they may get a judge going there that may look favorable to them and so on. I'm not saying that it, but you have to think all of these different strategies. Meanwhile, our population is gone dead while we wait to hear from them again as to when the ICJ is going to call us. This is a matter like the national anthem. All radio stations, I remember, when they go off air, they used to go off air, I believe, with the national anthem. Mm-hmm. When they come back on air, they used to come back on air force with the national anthem and the pledge. Some of them used to come out with the pledge and so on. We have none of this going on. We're not imbuing patriotism in this little thing called Guyana, especially at this time when we are likely to take off in terms of development. We are allowing this oil and so on now to completely blank us out to the things that should bind us together. These things are important. They are important. They're not things that should be dreamed up at the wayside. I keep saying development is not only about tall buildings and good roads. When you look at America, they got all of that. Tall roads, long buildings, and so on. But look at all the other cultural, historical, and everything else. You know America's history from since the Pilgrims' land. Of course, the white part, the part that before the Pilgrims' landed, you had people there. But you know their history right too. And they are good at preservation. So all the little artifacts and all this, they are preserved. And we spend millions of US going there every year to observe those things that we refuse to preserve here. So more and more, we are being influenced by overseas people, whether it's CARICOM, whether it's Trinidad, Calypso, Barbados, whatever it is, the OECS, whatever it is, and of course, Jamaica dancehall and reggae and whatever it is. We have nothing of our own. On our own Independence Day and on the weekly Enough Independence, we could not hear a single patriotic song being played on airwaves. All you heard was dancehall, this, here, that, there, so on. We are removing the little things that made us Guyanese. We are removing the little things that bound us together, whether you were Indian, black, whatever, we sang in the school, we did this, piano and all these things. We are removing the level of patriotism, the high level of patriotism that is required of all of us in situations where we've been sandwiched on the west by Venezuela and to the east by Suriname in border country. And we're hoping that when they flare up, our population will be there to think. We're not robots. We're not robots, and we have to stay strong and firm where our territory is concerned. And we just can't do that by mouthing statements and so forth. We have to engage that thing called the population of this country. And we're not doing it. And that, unfortunately for me, is we're going to wake up and find ourselves in a position that we weren't supposed to, because we put all the eggs on the table. And we forget to educate our people here. So that is my piece on that. Now the other thing, now to come back to your cost of living. No, of course, the cost of living is rising beyond. The cost of living is gone control. Measure. In fact, what we're seeing is a combination of rising food prices, of course, declining real income, because inflation must be somewhere between 6%, running at between 7% and 8% at the moment, and that will obviously have wiped out the little 7% that was paid here. And that 7% was paid after 2 years, because prior to that 7%, the last salary increase was January 29, but paid in December of 2019, so to speak. So that 7% would have been completely wiped out. You now have thousands of Guyanese now struggling to put food on the table, and as a result, forcing them to cheaper calories that they consume, and also many of them have opted to skip meals because they can't afford 3 meals a day anymore. In fact, I read somewhere where somebody wrote and says, well, they shouldn't have been eating 3 meals in the first place. Well, I don't know. I hope that was a joke. But it's now clear that people are struggling to put 2 meals on the table. And the situation at Warmadong Secondary School, which children were being fed shine rice, as we call it. doesn't bode well for the situation in Guyana. I will come back to the food shortly, but let me tell you, I read somewhere where Jagdio said, well, they have taken up all the tax from fuel, and that there's nothing more that they can do. Well, I find that to be a very strange thing coming from a policymaker, and a policymaker is of his standing, simply because that's like throwing up your hand and saying, well, you got to bear your chief, or you have to continue to bear the high prices that they've been experienced. And their way to go, as we have indicated before, was to remove all these indirect taxes, remove VAT on this, remove VAT on that, and so forth, in the hope that the prices, the benefit of the removal of the would have trickled down to the average consumer. Of course, I have been out there stating that in economies like Guyana, so forth, where the markets are underdeveloped and so forth, that's not going to happen. And I have been please correct. I'm not a soothsayer or anything, but I have been absolutely correct. There has been no trickle down. There has been no trickle down of any one of these, and it will not happen. It will not happen in a situation anyhow. Even if you didn't have the pandemic, even if you didn't have, it would not have happened. But now you have a pandemic where supply major issue. What is the incentive? I keep asking for me to lower my price when demand is in excess of supply. Lowering the price will only increase the demand when you have already a shortage. So I didn't see how that will make any sense. On the contrary, it destroyed the tax base that the government could have used to redistribute income to the less fortunate and the poor and other disadvantaged groups. So they do not have, as Jagdio claimed, they do not have the room anymore for any further removal of taxes. They don't have any further. And as one editor has indicated, when you remove the taxes anyhow from people, especially income tax or any such thing, you remove the contract between the government and the people. Taxes are the lifeblood of any government. It is, and taxation has any number of functions. One of the functions of taxation is to redistribute. That's one of the functions of taxation. So when you glorifying, we remove taxes from here, taxes from there, and so forth, you must worry afterwards that having removed those taxes, still the situation persists, and it's getting worse. It will get worse because you are not tackling this issue from the standpoint of those who are really in need. And I didn't get an opportunity yesterday to listen to the WPA Rodney thing on Clive Thomas's story. I tried a little bit, but the song was very bad, and you weren't hearing too much of it. But I'm aware of Dr. Thomas's Buxton proposal because he sent it to me subsequently in a refined format, and I want to make while I'm on it, I want to make a quick comment because Dr. Hines he flares the coalition very hard for not accepting the Buxton proposal. I think I might have explained this before, but I will use this opportunity quickly to indicate this. The Buxton proposal, when it initially was made, had suggested a $5,000 annual payout to all households in Guyana. It didn't say that such payout should start in 2027 or 2028, because I know I have the original proposal. It didn't say that. And it didn't say you should ramp up to 5,000. it said 5,000, and the speech that was made in Buxton indicated 5,000. Now, all the things that were said subsequently by Dr. Tom, I know him well. He was my professor at university, probably the best professor I ever had at a university level, and I believe what he probably said subsequently as he fleshed out the proposal. But these were not said at the original time. And that is why people like Dagdio pounced on it and said, it's crazy. Because you're asking for 5,000 US to be paid to roughly 214,000 households, which the last census, the 2012 census, I believe, that we had, at 5,000 per annum will be roughly over 1.something billion US dollars. Right? It will be roughly 1.1 billion US dollars. 1.1 billion US dollars just in cash transfers. And as I've read to you just now, and I could indicate to you again, the only time you are going to get a billion plus transfers, inflows into the National Resource Fund is from 2023. From 2023, you're going to get 1,165 million. 2024, you're going to get 1,325 million. And 2025, you're going to get 1,781 million. That is what the projections are in the budget. So you are asking $1.1 billion to come out immediately. It wasn't going to work, okay? And it lent itself to issues from thereafter. But the principle behind is absolutely correct. Is absolutely correct. What the coalition, what some members of the coalition indicated, and I could say me, what I indicated is that, look, I do not believe in the universal where people who are already well off will be given this year. What we need to do is target the groups who are in need. And I named some of them: disabled, pensioners, public servants. I think I named some of them, and so on. Those groups that are fully in need, not people who get in how much million US dollars a month and all this kind of story. Why would we want to add additional something? We must target those. Then we must use target education. Some of the things that need done by the coalition of this 5Bs program that affected the poor and powerless. You know how many children start to go to school and learn, because you got children who go to school but not learning simply but too tired to learn, or they are without nutrients in the morning. So by the time they reach the school tired, they don't have the activities and so on in the head, they don't take it. You know only how the results were affected positively, and we didn't have any oil resources. You took a weight off of the mother who didn't have to find transportation money because a bus was picking up her child in a safe condition. A safe condition. A bus was picking up her child, right? Taking the child to school. The child, when he reaches school, was given a hot meal, hot break, hot lunch, and so forth. The child would have been taken back home. You know how much that have taken off a poor mother, and especially the mother who has 2 children to send to school. You know how much? Boots, free boots, bicycle, uniform, all of those. That's where have to concentrate. And this was not a one-off $19,000 cash grant. This was all throughout the school year. That kind of assistance. That is the kind of assistance we must plug away to be reintroduced. The assistance with the 2 boats that have now been reintroduced between New Amsterdam and Rositnall, albeit they're using a smaller set of people, whereas we had said teachers, nurses, pensioners could travel on those boats free. Those are some of the services that we have to ask that our oil money be used, and we must not pay anything that says we don't have. The problem we have is that that's focusing on people and their immediate needs. That is where, and so given the crisis I'm seeing that is developing, and given the hopelessness seen increasingly among those who can't afford it, the pensioners, right? The pensioners, the teachers, the public servants, the disabled with children, you know, all of those people, indigenous people, riverine people, all of those people. I am saying, take the Thomas's proposal, not original. I'm going to take the Thomas's proposal, and I'm going to say, let us target 100,000 households of the poorest households. Let us target 100,000 households and pay 1,000 US for the time being. That will make $100 million. That will make $100 million. And so to ensure the contract is maintained between the people and the government, I say we could tax this $1,000 at a special income tax rate of say 5%. So the government will get 50 US and the people will get 950 US. If we divide up that 950 US by 12, it's roughly 12, it's roughly 80 US per month. That will be $60,000 per month. That will be $16,000 per month that a poor person can look forward to that they're not getting right now. And that's 100,000 households that it will only cost the government 100 million US from the Natural Resource Fund, and they will be getting back 50 million US, 5 million US. 5 million US. So that is a proposal that can be implemented right now, because the government took $607 million US dollars from the fund, or it's going to take $607 million US dollars from the fund this year. They've already drawn down 200 million. If we say in the half year, it will mean $500 million, $50 million, because the whole year is 100 million. If we said from July to December and we implemented this proposal, it will be 50 million. There's another $407 million US dollars to be drawn down, and 50 million out of that can be used to implement this proposal I'm talking about. Just 50 million can be used to implement this proposal I am speaking about. And it will help with the prices that these people are talking about that they can't do anything about. Now, gasoline is an input into virtually everything we have here. As I said in today's Starbucks News, gasoline and diesel prices are through the roof. The AGDO says that they have removed all the excise taxes, which is true. But there's no reason to suggest that they can throw up the hand and there's nothing else that can be done. There's obviously no reason for that. I'll tell you two things. One is that while the rate is appreciating, the Bank of Guyana rate has remained at 209, I think 209 or 210. It is the Bank of Guyana rate that it is for the importation of fuel. I said it the last time. The reserves of the central bank are used essentially to import fuel and to pay debt servicing. If the Bank of Guyana were to move the rate from the 209 or 210 that it's at, to more or less the rate that has appreciated to date, whether it's 190 or so forth, right? It means that the oil companies will have to find less Guyana dollars to import the fuel, less Guyana dollars to import the same volume of fuel, other things being equal, meaning that the prices more or less remain the same. If they have to find additional Guyana dollars, it will only be because the foreign price has increased. So that's one way where the price can be adjusted based on the adjustment at the Bank of Guyana for the exchange rate that is applied to fuel imports. Secondly, this is a time when emergency measures of what should be put in place. Therefore, the government should use some of the Natural Resource Fund money to subsidize the importation of the fuel, particularly the fuel that is meant to be used, particularly the kerosene. It should be used in some of that money. The government should scale back on the public investment program. There has to be a judicious mix between the public investment program and the social programs. And we have waited years. To get improvement. Agreed. We can wait a little bit more as we ride out the pandemic and as the world right-size itself, for us to be in a hurry to get all the infrastructure. But for the time being, we have to exist as a people. We have to exist as a nation. A nation without people is not a nation. So you scale back the public investment program to the immediate priority projects. And this would allow any inflow of cash on the social side to ensure that it doesn't result in an inflationary spiral or any such thing. It will be absorbed quite comfortably and easily. Thirdly, the government, rather than waiting for December to pay bulk cash as back pay to the public servants, can begin to make an interim award now and pay that award. It will be smoother because it will be paid every month. It will be smoother and will have the lumpy problems of this massive infusion of cash in December. Okay? Also, it will send a comfort or some signal to nurses who are migrating in droves, to teachers who are migrating. I don't know where they're going, but they're also migrating. And to other skill categories who are telling themselves there's no hope for them to enjoy a decent standard living in Guyana. A decent standard living has anything to do with giving you a house lot. Because you might get a house lot, you may pay through your nose for that house lot, but you can't approach any bank based on your existing salary to get a loan to make a house, to build a house. So those are about 4 immediate measures that can be taken without disrupting the inflationary and other aspects of the economy. And even the IMF in their last report have indicated that the government should be wary of the ramping up of the investment of the public sector investment program. Even they had said that in there. And so I agree. There must be some scaling back of that public investment and resources redirected to the more urgent need of social issues which are attacking our people right now. Meanwhile, I will suggest to the government that, some white paper be brought to the public as it relates to food security and the food strategy. In the coalition government, President Granger had started this issue about white papers. And a white paper, for those who don't know, is a paper that form about complex issues and to help members and stakeholders to these issues, how the government intends to solve the problems inherent in them, or what strategies and so on it will use and so forth. I remember that we did a green paper, which is a precursor to the white, for the Natural Resource Fund, and I believe we did a white paper on agriculture and the support the estates and so forth. Well, we need to develop that culture. And so I believe we've been hearing a lot of things about agriculture, and we're hearing about conferences, and we're hearing about for the Barbadian youths and all these things. But these things don't connect. The dots don't connect. And you're seeing we see a visit to somebody who's doing grapes and all these kind of things. The dots are not connecting. There's no food strategy. And the last time when we spoke on this matter a couple of weeks ago, I was messaged by a few, and I was met by a couple of people who asked me to if we can delve further into this food issues and the food strategy and so forth. And I said I will, but it looked like I've run out of time today, and I will ask that this be the food issue and the food strategies and so forth be the topic of our one of the topics of our next engagement.
Certainly. It's now 2 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour. There are a few things I would have liked to say, but we ain't got time, so no use getting into that. With regard to the Buxton proposal, for example, the recommendation for universal implementation, it would have, I think the thinking behind that, remove the stigma of discrimination and nepotism and so on. But like I said, not too much time to discuss that. I'm sure Dr. Clive Thomas and the specialists will have a look at your essay and perhaps choose whether to respond or not.
But
in the interest of education.
What I'm saying is that, remember I'm saying I understand and I appreciate and all of the principles behind it. But what I'm saying is that in society that is as poor as Guyana's, we should tackle the issue about poverty first before we go to this universal.
I understand, Mr. Jordan. Like I said, the pity is we don't have enough time. Maybe we will bring together a panel. How about that sometime?
Perhaps,
we'll talk about it.
Yes,
right?
It's important.
It is important for a national understanding because it's a push for a national policy. So it's important that be discussed. Nevertheless, I know you really exerted yourself this morning, man. But wonderful discussion, tremendous information. Our viewers are richer for it, I'm sure. So let me not keep you any longer. Get your rest, relax, rest and recuperate. We need you, right? The fight is long. We need you in every aspect. Yeah. Thank you once more.
Good, thanks.
Good, and thank you viewers for tuning in. It is now 4 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour, and I hate to have to leave you anticlimactic, if you want to call it that. But the fact is, there are lots of other things to be done in this Iowa. There are lots of other things to be done. I have so much more to do, political and otherwise, and so I have to cut the program this morning at its right time almost, and go there and get your work done, because remember, KAMS is a people's station. And every time we go there and do work, we're working on your behalf. Keep that in mind, right? Nevertheless, some things will be left unsaid until next time. See you tomorrow morning for another program of Buxtonian Morning Time. Certainly tune in tonight for a program of Politics 101 with Professor David Hines. Keep the struggle, stay woke, keep your eyes out. The folks at Golden Grove, lend them your support, moral and otherwise, physical and otherwise, that they can hold this government accountable. I see people making statements like the government wasn't responsible for the murder of Quindon Bacchus. It's a personal grouse with the policeman and Bacchus over some woman, etc. I don't care what the personal grouse might be. The government is ultimately responsible. The policeman, the murderer, or the assassin, whatever you want to call him, murdered Bacchus under the auspices of his office as a police officer, under the auspices of this government, which has created the environment that allows policemen to run amok in this society and be protected by them. I see Clinton Eakin saying that the Office of Professional Responsibility will take control of the issue. The Office of Professional Responsibility, as far as I am aware, relies on the police to provide certain information in the investigations. There's always a blue wall of silence, if I can call it that. The corrupt watches the back of the corrupt. Police protect police. And nothing less than an independent international investigation should be accepted by the relatives of Bacchus, nor the citizens of Guyana. Right? Like I said, time is a constraint right now, and I will say the rest.